Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks everyone for joining. I'm Sebastian, founder and CEO at Cargo5. Uh, Thanks for all the logistics professionals for joining another webinar. Today we have a very interesting topic. We'll be discussing about how to build a future-proof tech stack for logistics service providers. So be ready, grab your coffee. We'll be discussing about different topics with a great panel that we have today. And yeah, please write your comments on the chat. We will be ready. We will take a look and answer at the end. So please feel free to write any ideas, any challenges and comments regarding the topic that we will share at the end. So we are in 2025 and relying as logistics service providers, relying on spreadsheets or disconnected systems. At the end, it doesn't work anymore. Technology is not longer nice to have. Is the core of efficiency, of growth, and building a sustainable and scalable business. But there are a lot of tools out there, right? Every day we have new solutions, new tech providers. Data is spread across different silos. It's hard to integrate. So the big question here is how freight forwarders can actually build this scalable tech stack and build a sustainable and base tech stack to scale their business, right? So today we'll be discussing a bit about integration strategies, how to choose the right tools, the different challenges when it comes to user adoption. And for that, I'm very happy because today I'm with two great experts in the industry. Both have a mix of years of experience in the industry and then years of experience building tech for the industry. So I would like to welcome Brian and Tarek. Hey guys, how are you doing?
Hi, hello. Good
Doing
morning, good
great.
afternoon.
Good morning. How is the summertime in Barcelona for you guys?
Oh, lovely as always. It's nice and calm and we don't complain about the heat too much.
That's good.
Right, Tarek?
Yeah, you're right. As a neighbor now, we share actually the same area, so we cannot complain.
Good, good. So next one, we do it in Spanish, Brian. The
Sí,
next
sí,
webinar.
sí. It's claro.
Claro, we start today. Uh, Amazing, amazing. Thanks for joining and for participating today. It would be great if we can share first a bit about you each other. Like maybe to start with you, Brian. As I mentioned, you work for like 10, 15 years in the freight forwarding industry, and then you started Chain.io. Like, what brought you into this business? Like, if you could share a bit about your story and yeah, when you
Yeah,
started.
absolutely. So yeah, it's been about 25 years or so in customs and freight forwarding. Started with a customs broker, ran global infrastructure for a multinational freight forwarder, built some of the original supply chain management and purchase order management platforms back in the early 2000s. And through that whole time, the pain of getting multiple things across shippers, logistics providers, software companies, getting them all to work together was always the most painful and least fun part of my job. And so I said, well, somebody should just go work on the thing that's painful and no fun. So decided to spend the rest of my life doing things that are painful and no fun, and that's Chain.io. So we help freight forwarders, cargo owners, software companies all work better together by getting rid of the friction that happens when you want to bring new technology in or share data between different supply chain partners.
Amazing. And when it comes to with all these experience, when it comes to the main bottlenecks or the main problems that you have seen, and mainly going into one of the topics like, what do you think is the biggest challenge that logistics service providers have when it comes to building their tech stack? Is legacy systems, these data across different silos and integration? What do you think is, or resistant to change? Like, what do you think is the main challenge there?
So I think they're all kind of intertwined, but the way that I see it is that right now, freight forwarders in particular are stuck in between a couple of different trends that are pulling them in different directions. You've got a combination of a lot of legacy systems still out there, or systems that have not modernized enough. You've got a lot of the last, say, 10 years of SaaS providers bringing all sorts of uh, interesting solutions that tend to be more focused on solving one problem as opposed to replacing an entire company's IT. And then you have now this wave of change that's coming from AI, which is going to create questions that are much bigger than just what tech should I use? They're going to start questions about what is the role of a service provider again? What's the role of a freight forwarder? That changed with the fax machine, it changed with the internet, and it's going to change again with AI. So right now we're at a very important point where picking the right technology and figuring out how to put all of that together is a strategic business decision about who you're going to be for the next 10 or 15 years, which is a important question to answer. So I think answering that question is actually the biggest pain point. And then the tech will do what the tech does. I always say the computers follow the instructions we give them. It's the people and the strategy that are hard.
Yeah, yeah, and I would love to hear more today about what's the right framework, right? Because
Mhm.
as you mentioned, like, tools are great, but that depends on people, how to prioritize, right? So we'll be discussing a bit about that. But yeah, thanks, Brian. First, also like to mention a bit about Tarek, because Tarek, uh, you've been pushing first, working on the shipping lines for APIs, right? You've been managing that site. Uh, but I mean, at the end, you see a lot of freight forwarders, they still relying on spreadsheets for different processes and then pushing them into APIs. So yeah, it would be great if you can share a bit about that, what you've seen in the market, these biggest challenges, and yeah, your experience from moving from shipping line side to Cargo 5 would be
Sure,
great.
sure. Absolutely. Yeah, so I agree with what you mentioned, Brian and Sebas, but I can just bring like another aspect because sometimes I see that companies buy a new system or software, implement it, but the employees don't receive any kind of instructions or training, right? Therefore, they don't have to learn by themselves, which is difficult because they don't have enough time. So, on the other hand, when they receive a training, sometimes they don't have a time to try it out. So that's why it's important that managers push them and make weekly follow-ups and just keep on track. And as I say, sometimes it's not that they don't want it, but they don't have the time or they don't see the benefit sometimes. So that's important. The managers just go beyond that. Furthermore, there is sometimes often resistance to change. So I would say that if you don't have the mind to change to another system or just keep following like the new technology era that we have now right now, they cannot evolve rapidly in the company, right? So they just must keep tracking and test it, new technologies and decide what to do, right? Because we have now APIs. In the past, we had ADIs. We see new systems like ERPs and TMS. So if you want to evolve in this industry, you need to be keep updated.
100% agree. And before, I think sharing more into the tools, right, and the strategy for implementing the stack, uh, I think there is a big foundation here. We've been discussing about this, and well, Brian is very focused on this point. That is integrations, right? At the end, freight forwarding is about coordinating different processes, and data must flow in a very accurate way, right, through the entire flow of the operation. So if we don't have a strategy for integrating this data, we can have a lot of problems, right? So the first question that I have here is like, uh, why this should be the foundation, and what happened. Maybe Brian, if you can share a bit, if this integration strategy is overlooked, what you have seen within different players in the industry.
Yeah, so I think coming from what Tarek just said, it's really important that when you think about people who are resistant to change and you ask the question, why are they resistant to change? There are very, very few people in a freight forwarder, especially at the desk level, who don't want their job to be easier, right? Who, if you walked in and said, "I have a magic button, you're going to press this button, and all of the emails to the customers are going to go away, and it's all just going to be resolved." That they're like nobody's actually going to say, "No, I like doing that," right? There's plenty of things that we want to make better and that people want to have better. Where things fall down is when what you also say at the same time is, by the way, here's 11 new screens. And now I'm going to buy you a fourth monitor because you're going to need to have this tool over here in addition to the tool that I told you was the only tool you're ever going to use, and the tool that you use to do the reports for that tool, and the tool that you use to monitor the email over here, right? So that's when people get frustrated. And so when you can bring into your operation new technology in a way where you're not just adding, you're making the process have less steps or the process has less friction for the end users, then you get that adoption. What is very, very bad is when integration and that how are we going to make this work is something that is decided after the purchase by the project team, right? Or it is decided uh, as defined by the vendor without consideration for what makes your business unique, or it's decided once for your rate management platform and once for your billing platform and once for your pricing engine and once for your TMS and once for your custom system, and now you've got these piles of integrations and things moving around, but there's no strategy to it. So when we talk about integration foundation, we're saying is you should be able to map out your business process, understand how to make the data that your employees need or your customers need available to them where they need it and when they need it, independent of any particular piece of technology's features, right? Like, so this is how data should move through our organization. This is how a customer tells us they have freight. This is how we give them the price. This is how we operate that freight. This is how we get paid for it. Those are pretty much the steps in the businesses. And once you do that, then how do we make that easy for everyone? And easy for everyone should be the right answer, not always it doesn't even have to be perfect as long as it's usable, because that strategy of how that data moves is what then drives that adoption.
Amazing, Brian. And I saw Tarek laughing because like when he joined Cargo 5, like I remember that he was like API first, integrations first. Like he was the main one of the main persons like pushing all the time uh, or making easier, as you mentioned, and one of the main blockers for freight forwarders to implement solutions. To start with that, like what is the strategy regarding the TMS or the ERP integration, even with our solution, right? Uh, and yeah, he brought a lot of experience with CMA. So yeah, one of the challenges that we are seeing to add there is mostly that there is no normalization within data, right? So even if there are two APIs available, even if it's simple to connect those APIs have different data structures. But the good point, what we have seen, and I would love Tarek feedback on this, is that now AI is making way easier to transform that data in a more automated way, right? So like the onboarding and the data transformation that maybe been taking like month, now it's done in a few weeks, right? Thanks to that. Uh, but yeah, a lot of changes during the past years. I don't know, Tarek, what do you think? Like, uh, what are the things that you should analyze as a freight forwarder? when it comes to the integration strategy within the different systems that you have in place.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was laughing because this is the problem that we are seeing like on daily basis, as Brian mentioned. And this is our aim, just to help them just to move forward, right? So yeah, so basically, what we need to move forward in this industry is to have like same data exchange between all the systems. Because maybe you can build like the best one, let's say Caro 5 as a rate management system, but if you cannot understand to other systems like ERPs, TMS, CRM, and so on, it doesn't make sense, right? So that's very important to have like a good capabilities, good infrastructure, and good technology if you want to exchange the data between each other. It happens in this industry. We saw several cases, as I mentioned before in other webinars. We see, for example, like some data call it bunker, sometimes we call it bath, sometimes we call it fuel, whatever, right? So we have like different names for just one concept. So if you cannot just push out these concepts to another system, understand each other, it's quite complicated because all the freight forward they have still making manual jobs, and this is something that we have to solve from our end. So I just recommend to all the freight forwarders if they want to know what's the capabilities of the edge tech that they have in the company, just asking to the vendor, right? Just to know what they
Yeah.
need, what they have, the capabilities, and see if
So I can add something maybe
between.
onto that.
Yeah, yeah.
I can add something onto that, which is that when customers join Chain.io network, one of the things that we see, and we see it especially around rate management, and is they they come with a lot of very fresh ideas about something they've never done before, and they say, "This is how we want to do it,"
Cool.
right? And the answer is that almost every process that everybody does has been done before, right?
Mhm.
By some other freight forwarder, right? There are very, very, very few things that one freight forwarder in the world does, right? I think there's probably some things around project freight that maybe like, the people who move concerts or move fine art, they have like very unique things. But other than that, you're not the first freight forwarder that needs to get a price from a carrier, add a markup, and sell it to a customer, right?
Mhm.
You're not the first one who has to send an electronic invoice to six
Yeah.
different freight audit and pay providers, and you're certainly not the first one that has to cut a house bill, right? So the idea of reinventing these processes or starting from a blank whiteboard as opposed to starting from either like a defined process as we have them predefined in Chain or what a software vendor is bringing to you, start from that and maybe 2% of it you need to change, right? But so many freight forwarders are starting from a blank whiteboard and saying, how do I design this thing for me because I'm special? When, to be honest, the things that make you special should not be like your definition of how of bath, right? Like that's just not the thing that where you should be spending your time being creative. So
100% agree, and I think that basic foundation, as we mentioned, like the integration layer, starting with that point as one of the most important topics, and knowing that data mapping shouldn't be the core of the business. That's something additional, right? So you can, of course, bring better customer service. And with that, building that layer, then we can move into the second part, right? But at the end, what we've seen is that there are several tools out there, right? So for different processes, it's hard to find like maybe only one solution that fits for every freight forwarding process, right? So the big question here is, with all these tools available, right? TMSs, ERPs, CRMs, rate management, visibility, order management, right? How we choose the right tool and which priority do we give to each of these tools and these processes? And not only that, I think there is a big question that we've seen across the different customers is like, should I buy this or should I build this, right? Like, and for that, in fact, I love. We had a discussion with Brian last week's about it, and you brought an interesting framework, Brian, that I would like to bring today uh, to help freight forwarders to make these decisions, right? Which process, which tool is important. So yeah, I will invite to share a bit about that framework because it's interesting even for us. So
Absolutely. So this is actually the template we use for a 2-day workshop that we do with freight forwarders. And essentially, what we do is each of these is, think of it like a post-it. So you've got all the business processes that you do in a freight forwarder. So anything from reverse logistics to margin consolidations to visibility, rates, all of these things in here. And on day one, we sit with the business leadership and we say, what do you not do? What do you have to do? What do you want to be better at? Like, what are the things that make you kind of special? And what is the things where you want to be the best in the world? And we keep these boxes these sized. You can't change them on the template here. So you can't put everything in best in the world. And so we sit with the business and we have that conversation, and there's no technology in here. This is all business processes. Then the second day, we sit down and we do it again. And we use the same post-its and we put them on the next slide here, and we sit with IT in the room and we say, okay, this is what the business said. Now show us what are the things that you're going to run inside your TMS because they are the things you just have to do in your business. What are the things where you are going to buy some add-on solutions that make you a little better? And what is the one or maybe two things where you are going to make a strategic investment to build something? And it is very, very hard, first of all, to get these boxes to line up between the two slides. And second, to not get people to overdo the boundaries on these bottom two. Oh, I want to buy this and I want to build this. And the answer is you should be doing that for the few things that make you really special over here. And you should just let your TMS or your ERP run everything else inside of here. So that's the framework that we use. And it's 2 days of very, very, very difficult conversations with both teams and then with the teams together at the end to sort of wrap it up. But the idea is to shrink down and make sure that you're putting your money on the things that make you special. So
yeah, and I imagine that you mentioned that you onboard two different teams, right? Like maybe you have operational team and then the IT team. And I imagine that's then when it comes to that mapping, the ideas are completely different, right? I don't know what you have seen there within like prioritization for the different teams across the same organization.
yeah, it's interesting because a couple of things happen. One, you'll see that if you ask the IT team to say, what are we investing in today? It's often very, very different.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that happens is you see people in the room who either their operational job function or their IT project is put into that non-strategic box. And you would think they would be upset, but sometimes they're not, because what they've done is they've spent the last 5 years trying to fight for resources that they were never going to get because it wasn't strategically important. And once it's been said out loud to say, like, look, we want you to do this really well. You need to be able to invoice customers efficiently, and you need to be able to do that well, but we are not making the difference in our revenue based on whether you invoice it this way or that way. They can stop fighting and just start working with the tools they have to get better, and they don't have to feel like they're screaming into a wind that's coming at them and nobody's hearing them anymore. So it's hard to be that honest with both teams, but it's very, very effective at the end to be clear on whether you are going to get future investment for that business process or not.
Yeah, and it's better to do it as the starting point, right? And not after implementing the solution and then realizing that
Yes.
it's a nightmare to go back, right? But yeah, within integrations and even without strategy, This has been key for us and part of one of the main conversations that we have with customers. That it has a lot of that during the sales and the onboarding process. So I don't know, Tarek, what do you think about this topic? Like, what are the main things that freight forwarders should put focus when it comes to choosing the right tools, when it comes to choosing the providers, and when it comes to prioritization apart from the framework, right?
Yeah, great. So first of all, just I would like just to reply to the first question. I think that nowadays there is not a single solution that offer everything, and not even CargoWise, because sometimes people just want to go to CargoWise. So for freight forward, it's important to understand what their ERPs or TMS can offer, meaning what connection or integration they have with other platforms. So they can build everything on their own. So they should choose the best platform and integrate it. That way, customers can access more application information because the ERPs and TMS, they are willing to integrate all platforms, like a rate management system or finance systems, operation system, and so on. So the ERP or TMS, they don't have to develop anything, but they can integrate it via API, all the system that they need, right? So basically, they have to take care and see which features they can just have it in the ERPs. And for sure, the price wise, it's important. But I will just invest more time just knowing what kind of features they have it and the capabilities and how we can just implement it in our company. As I mentioned earlier, um, we don't have time in this industry. I feel like everyone is overwhelmed and they cannot even just take a breathe, a stop, and just check what they have within the company. So yeah, basically the capabilities of each software is the most important thing, and check it before to buy it because sometimes like companies software offer like a trial so they can test it for free. Check it and see the benefit that can just bring to the company.
Amazing, Tarek. And I think let's put the best case scenario. We use the framework, right? We define priorities. We build an integration strategy. We analyze all that part. So we know those are these the plan, right? These are the right tools. And now it comes, I think, in my perspective, one of the biggest challenges of the industry that is adopting those tools, right? Because at the end, the tool it won't work alone, right? We want that. We are working for that, but like, and we have seen within our solution, within Cargify, and even with the tools that we use, like from a CRM, you can take 10x or you can take 1x, right? Depends on how would you implement the solution, right? So the big question here, and also feedback for forward is like first, maybe for you, Brian, what do you think is the biggest challenge when it comes to adoption, right? Like, what is stopping freight forwarders to implement the tools in the right way? And what is your recommendation mostly to overcome this situation? If there is any framework, any idea, like to implement solutions in the best way, right?
Um, I think again, coloring inside the lines remains important, right? And not getting too creative. Especially you're hiring employees who've worked other places, and the more similar and the more you can use new technology to fit into and maybe slightly improve processes. They using the language and the metaphors that you already understand in your business, you're going to have a much higher chance. So if you say, like, let's say somebody comes up tomorrow with an entirely new way to think about pricing in the industry from scratch, and everything's different, and there are no charge lines, and there are no accessorials, and like it would be really, really hard to go back through your organization and just implement that just to try. Whereas, a tool that says, I'm going to use the existing metaphors in the industry and get you a better margin, right, at the end, or make it fewer clicks for your customer to buy. Like that's much, much more attainable. So, where I've seen some of our customers fail is they want to do the thing that's the most exciting instead of the thing that is three or four or five steps towards the thing that's the most exciting, right? So like you look at like spot rate, right, and dynamic pricing on spot rates. That took a long time to be a reality. And when it comes to integration, it's still really hard because you have legacy systems that were built before spot rates that expect you to have a rate card loaded in order to do a pricing. And so we had to work very, very hard as an integration provider with our customers to design a business process that allows an integration to function in a market where a rate validity might be 45 minutes with a systems that's expecting a 90-day rate validity, right? And so that's hard. Don't layer on top of that also reinventing your whole business, right? So do these incremental steps and things go well, and take your employees and your systems from where they are and say, okay, how do we move this forward in a way where we can show business value in, depending on the size of your company, either in a week or a month or 3 months, whatever seems fast to you, short increments, and keep doing that over and over again. And don't try to get the integration perfect the first day. Try to get something that works and improve it. And all I'm doing is redescribing the IT concept of agile development here, but this idea of like get something, get it in, and improve it is much more effective than reinvent your whole business because you decided to buy a new tool that you've never actually used before.
Yeah, like
I will answer that like in another way. So I completely agree what Brian mentioned. Uh, from my side, just I would like this to bring the value, just showing the system with the real use cases. It's important, right? At least this is what I do. So when I speak with a potential customer, I challenge them to quote using like the spreadsheets, and I do the same with Cargo 5. That way they can clearly see the benefit. But again, they have to invest their time, just check the system by their own as well, and check all the filters.
yeah, at the end, I think putting framework and also taking both comments, maybe like setting that goal for me the long term, but then seeing those small steps into that goal, like when it comes to for example, to Cargofy at the end, customers are looking to winning more deals or quoting faster, right? Okay, like what is the percentage that we want to decrease in terms of time that you spend quoting, right? And as you mentioned, Brian, and we seen with Tarek, like first week is not that you say directly 90%, but as long as you are implementing, you work towards that goal and you see the results, right? So that gives you, okay, we are going into that direction instead of not having a goal or a focus, right? And then things got maybe in the chaos and users don't implement. Another thing that we seen that was really interesting at the starting point is that some organizations have their own like champions inside their companies, right? Like to like assign one or two champions to test, to do the hard work, as you mentioned, Brian, and then move into a bigger amount of users, right? Instead of pushing, a big team all together at the beginning, makes things harder. And I think it's, at least in our case, is something that we have seen that works really well. I don't know also, Tarek, what do you think about this specific process even within Cargofy for the onboarding and within the customers that we have? What are the best cases that you've seen to overcome the onboarding, apart from the content that we give and the onboarding process that we have, like within the strategy of the customers to onboard faster? What do you think?
Yeah, so first thing, the best use case is when the managers and the employees are aligned. Because sometimes I see people or managers or CEOs that they want to invest in systems, but they are not aligned with other colleagues in the company. So they maybe sometimes they force to use the system, but the best one is when they are aligned and they have time just to check Cargo 5 and we make the onboarding from our end, right? So what we do right now, we have like a meeting with them, showing the system, and they can try it in live with us and check all the features that we have and how we can just implemented within the ERPs and the TMS. So showing case this kind of features, always they are happy, and when you see them, the benefits and the value, they are happy to use it more often. So this is like the best use case. On the other hand, we saw other cases that only half of the people use it, and the other half they just rely on a spreadsheet yet, and they are happy with that. So we try to change their mind, but to be honest, it's quite difficult. But I think like in the future, everyone will change their mindset and just move forward to the tech platforms because they need it. In the end, shippers they expect to have everything very quickly as we buy like flights or food in the apps. So if they don't do that, yeah, I mean, quote faster and quickly, other freight forwarders will do that. So if they want to compete with other colleagues in the industry, they have to adapt the technology.
So I can give a kind of very specific example of something inside of Chain that we did recently, and then how this would also apply in a forwarder is um, we're in the process of building a tool that is going to allow people to upload the PDF of an EDI specification and dynamically create the mapping using AI and all sorts of cool stuff. But one of the things that we noticed when we went to sit down and build it was the way you do that in our system today, you have to touch 3 or 4 screens. And that was going to create a lot of friction. And so what we released last week as a very small improvement was a single screen that then eliminates the need to go to 3 or 4 other screens, right? That kind of coordinates the different activities. And then the AI thing is harder to build, and that is going to come second. And when it comes to implementing new technology in a forwarder, often what you'll see is whether it's an email automation tool, whether it's rate tool, whether it's a visibility platform, doesn't really matter. But like in the rate example, say, okay, we're going to get rid of the spreadsheets and we're going to do fully dynamic pricing. We're going to do it all at the same time. Right. And then so the person who's using the spreadsheet doesn't like the new tool. And now you have to unpack, do they not like it because we didn't get the data quality good enough to do the pricing? Or did they not like it because of the workflow with the spreadsheet? And if you implement those things by saying, hey, today we're fully manual and on a spreadsheet, tomorrow we are going to use the rate management tool to do the quoting, but we're going to still let you set the price. And then in a month or in 2 months, once you're comfortable with using the booking process and the quoting process in the tool, then we are going to layer in the dynamic pricing. That has got a much higher chance of success than smacking in 5 or 6 different improvements all on the first day. So step by step with your employees, even though the owner always wants it all on the first day. So I say that as the owner.
Of course. And yeah, even for us, I think when we started Cargo 5, like 6 years ago, like we started like we need auto quoting, like was the first goal. But at the end, like what you just mentioned was the right example, like starting 100%, going to an organization and trying to implement as the first point auto quoting. It was impossible, right? We needed to go back to step one, help them with small improvements, automating 10%, 20%, helping them to change their behavior when it comes to quoting, setting up the right environment for them to have what they are doing manually 100% automatically. But instead of going from step 1 to 10 straight away, like going with incremental improvement, right? Otherwise, it was impossible. And now we are reaching that point. But again, it's when it comes to user behavior and change, as you both mentioned, like trying to go to the most exciting at the beginning, sometimes is a bit hard, right?
We're working with a very large forwarder right now on implementing some AI to automate some decision making that would be kind of like a chatbot type solution that ultimately should be customer facing. But the step one of this process is going to be to make it employee facing and have all it's going to do is say things to the employees. It's not even going to be able to make changes. And a year from now, maybe it can make some changes in the system, and maybe 2 years from now, it can talk to the customer. But if we, and I think this is an important thing for everybody to remember, because everyone who's building these things is so excited about them, like you guys were at the beginning, and they're going to say, okay, take my AI tool and let it go, right? And you say, okay, well, let's do a step of it, and then the next step, and the next step is uh, going to be very important as people bring in this next very cutting edge layers of technology into their organization. Is, again, this incrementalism is no fun, versus, burn the building down and build a new building is always way more exciting. But sometimes all you need to do is clean the floor, right? Like, let's not burn the whole building down.
I would like to highlight something that happened to me in the past, because I saw some customers that they don't have anything. I mean, no ERP or technology, whatever. But all of the sudden, when I show like Cargo 5, they start to complain, saying like, you don't have like a booking, you don't have inland, and all of the sudden they want to digitize like all the system in the company, right? So it's like, just take care step by step, just digitize your pricing. Maybe you can just move forward to go to an ERP or TMS and all software and so on. But sometimes I see that all of a sudden they say that they want to change everything within the company, but just keep calm, it's like step by step, just keep calm. And yeah, we can help you just to digitize your company. But you cannot expect to have like everything just in one place and like do like this and digitize like all your colleagues and the system and so on.
Yeah, building the with us building the foundation and the base layer is critical. I had like some meetings during the past month. We've been doing some auto quoting with AI from emails, reading emails and answering like similar bots. We are doing some pilots with that, and it's working really well. And we have several customers come in and say, we want that right now. And what they don't realize sometimes is that if we don't have, for example, all the buying rates in a well structure, then, I mean, automating the request from the email to request the quotation is kind of the most simple part. The hard part is standardizing to have not only 2% of the rates available in the system, but having all the rates, all the inland rates, all the LCL, FCL information, right? Like, that's the tricky part. And sometimes it's hard, like, because they want tomorrow the auto quoting without implementing without having even a good procurement process, right? So that's why, again, I think that's the discussion that we had, like dividing into different layers, working to that goals, but building first the foundation is really important, right?
When we meet a new potential customer, the first slide we show them is this very fancy map of all these logos. And the second slide, and the only other slide we show them in the first meeting, is one that just says execution and insights. And it says everyone wants to do insights. They want to do analytics. They want to do AI. They want to do stuff. I said, but are you executing your business well? And if you're not, you don't have the data, to your point, to do the fancy things, right? And so, yes, you want the autoresponder, but if you don't know how you buy freight, and if you don't collect the information on what you expect to pay the carrier, you can't do the autoresponder. And so it's sort of like this little bit of a scolding moment that we have to have with almost every new customer we meet that says, look, we're going to validate with you that you are up to par on execution before we talk about what we call insights. Because otherwise they're going to fail and they're going to hate us at the end when it doesn't work. So
I agree. Yeah. And coming maybe to the last one today, I would like to understand both like your perspective about where do you think there are the biggest opportunities when it comes to integrating data, when it comes even to operations, procurement, uh, with the experience that you both have, maybe starting with you, Brian. What do you think is the biggest opportunity, and also like small steps and very high impact but with low effort that you see when it comes to implementing tools and integrating data within operations?
So I think for every freight forwarder, the answer, I'll start with the small steps because I think the answer is the same. And it's been the same for the entire 25 years that I've been in this business. If you get good data from your customers, from the BCOs at the beginning of the process, if you can get an electronic booking request, if you can get a purchase order, if you can get a part master, if you integrate with your customers well, then you have a data foundation to sell them back data products and to manage their supply chain instead of their cargo. And you can make a lot more margin when you're doing supply chain management. What's the difference between cargo management and supply chain management? 10% margin. That's the difference. It's nothing. It's just get good data from your customers and sell it back to them, right? So I think the small thing is do the old school EDI or whatever it is, but get the data so then you can give that data to Cargo 5. You can give that data to, all of these email bots. You can give that data to your TMS and properly operate your customer supply chains for them. On the big picture, I think that we all need to start thinking very carefully about the concept of exception management and whether it's the right concept for the next 10 years. So we spent the last 25 years going from we're managing every shipment closely by hand with a person in a folder to we're only looking at the exceptions. I think that in the next 10 years, we're actually going to snap back to managing every shipment very closely, but by a bot, not by a person. And that idea of every shipment is a white glove shipment that has its own life cycle and is managed closely by these tools is very, very different than exception management. And so the big thing, do you have the tools in place to give the perfect level of service that you give to your best customer on every shipment? That's what I would start thinking about.
Yeah, I guess like in the future, young people grow up, right? So they will have experience just buying by internet, just have like a website just to buy. So I guess in the future it's going to be the BCO, the shippers go to the forwarder website and try to book directly from there, right? Just to add like I want one container, this is the weight, search, buy it from point A to point B, and that's it. And everything is going to be later integrated in the freight forwarder system, so they will see everything from that. So in the end, they need to just give a good experience to shippers, BCOs, and so on, in order just to have like all the technology updated as well, right?
I agree. At the end, I think they're like having clean data about every process, automating, of course, those that are repetitive, and at the end, people focusing more on those exceptions that we hope that the bots are not able to do, right?
Yeah, it's a big challenge indeed.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks everyone for joining. It was a great chat. So we appreciate all the time. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Tarek. And yeah, let's keep in touch. And I hope to see everyone again in another session. Thank you very much. And yeah, have a good day.
Thank you.
Ciao,
It was a
ciao.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.